Hey everybody, it's Greg Harrelson here with my great friend and partner Abe Safa, and of course we're bringing you another episode live on YouTube, and it's a Level Up podcast episode where Abe and I just do have a short conversation on something that we think is important, something that we think needs to be discussed in the real estate market at this time. So Abe, thanks for joining me again.
Yeah, Greg, looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, so let's just continue the conversation that we've had for many, many years, and that's the conversation around listing agent and the question, so you want to be a listing agent? That's what a lot of people want in the industry, right? They think like for some reason they think that being a listing agent is going to be critical in order to do big business. And I remember from when I was very young in this business, 30 years ago, I was told things like, you got to list to last. I get it. Yeah, I get it. But you know what? I know a lot of buyer agents that are lasting a long time too and doing quite a bit of business. So I don't think being a listing agent is for everybody. For those, though, that are actually thinking that they want to be a listing agent, we're talking to you today. So Abe, let's just dive into like, what do we think those things are? What do people need to do right now if they want to be a listing agent? What's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Yeah, I think the first thing that comes to my mind is you've got to like to me being a listing agent and really like being what I think is a dominant listing agent, like someone that actually is going to do a good bit of business instead of just picking up a listing here and there. Like it's a commitment. Like the first thing I think you've got to do is actually just declare it and decide that, hey, this is what I'm going to do. Because it's a completely, I mean, you might agree with me on this or not, but it's a completely different business. It's a different model. It's a different approach than if you're someone that works buyers. Like to me, it's like a whole different mindset. It's a whole different daily routine. It's all different activities. So it's a commitment. So I think the first step is like, okay, if that's what you really want, and like you said, it's not for everybody. I'm sure if you ask agents, sure, I'd love to take more listings, but if you're really, really serious about becoming a listing agent, then you got to take the plunge. I think it starts there.
Yeah, I think you're raising a good point. One of the things that crossed my mind as you were talking is like, what is a listing agent? And here's what I think it is. A listing agent is a lead generator. What is a buyer's agent? A buyer's agent, for the most part, is in the lead servicing space. A listing agent is in the lead generating space. Now, let me explain. Most buyers come in without an outbound call. In other words, they come in through an online portal, maybe your website, you capture the lead. They come in off of a sign call. Maybe they come in off in an open house. In other words, we do something and buyers come to us and then we service them. That by no means diminishes the value of a buyer's agent. I'm just saying that they're more on the servicing a servicing model. And then you got listing agents. Listing agents, they don't have anyone to service unless they generate. So listing agents are lead generators. We can call it prospectors if we want, but they're lead generators. And I think when it comes down to there's a difference, I think that's the fundamental difference right there is you want to be a listing agent? What do you want to be a lead generator? And sometimes when you say, do you want to be a lead generator to somebody that says, I want to be a listing agent, now all of a sudden they don't really want to be a listing agent. So I just think for somebody at the most basic level that's having these kind of conversations, they need to ask themselves, are they interested in being a lead generator? Because that's what a listing agent is. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, 100% agree. And that's a great distinction you just made. Now, that doesn't mean all you buyers agents out there, that doesn't mean that you guys can't or don't generate.
Sure.
Like you can still generate, right? But for the most part, most people that work buyers are taking leads and converting them. They're not generating leads for the most part.
Yeah.
You can't get away with that if you're trying to be a listing agent. Like you can't just be a converter. because the leads don't come in and they don't flow like buyer leads would. So you, like Greg said, you have to actually be out there generating. Like that has to be that's your bread and butter. That's your foundation if you're going to be in that business.
100%. When we start thinking about okay, what do they need to do right now? If they want to be a listing agent, what do they want to do right now or need to do right now? I mean, I think one of the basic rules that we would say or things would be they have to have a daily prospecting routine, right? So it's like one of the first things that we would even say that one needs to do if they want to be a listing agent is a daily routine for lead generation. That's kind of why I speak on that. What are some other things that somebody would need to do right now if they want to start being a listing agent?
Yeah, so it starts there. Like that's to me, that's the base. Is like you base everything around your lead generating. So your whole schedule is based around that. So what does that mean? Okay, you block out time for lead gen. You block out time for improving your skills, so you can actually generate better. And then you block out a lot of time for improving your skills, so you can actually convert better. So
Yeah.
it all has to do with, okay, I'm breaking up my whole schedule and building it around lead gen. Like that's the base. And then from there, okay, how do I become a better lead gen? Will I improve my skills? And what
Yeah.
does that take? Your conversations. So conversations is so critical in being a listing agent. You've got to be able to get into a conversation. You got to be able to dig deep with people and really get to the root of their motivation and what they're thinking. They're not going to be as open as buyers in telling you what they're looking for or what they want. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that's the challenge with being a listing agent. These sellers aren't going to just come out and say, "This is what I'm doing." It's like it takes some really good communication skills and being able to dig deep and get past the surface level conversations and figure out what their true motivation is, if any.
Yeah. I think buyers, I've said this, buyers buy off emotion and sellers sell off logic.
Mhm.
So if you want to be a listing agent, it's going to be important to use logic in your presentation, in your communication. Justify the things that you're saying because they're not like emotionally buying a new home and experiencing those feelings of what it's going to be like to be in this bigger home or this home on this lake and whatnot. They've already experienced all those experiences. They're looking at it more logically. They're looking at it more from a financial standpoint. I'm not saying that financial is the only part of selling. There's probably some emotion in there, but the rule is buyers buy off emotion and sellers sell off logic. So it's very important. Abe, we've had this conversation and I just want to kind of get your opinion. What do you think is important if you wanted to be a listing agent and you had to choose to learn two things, but you were going to learn one before the other? One was learn how to do a listing presentation, or do you think it's better to learn how to prospect first?
That's a good question, Greg, because I mean, I can argue that either way. But I would say listing presentation. And let me tell you why. Listing presentation, I mean, there's a lot of resistance in picking up the phone and calling and lead gen, but that's easier to fix, right? That's surface level, like a couple of conversations with an agent, a couple of things you show them, a little bit of repetition, and they can get over that discomfort and be able to jump in and make calls. But the listing presentation takes confidence.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're going to walk into a home and you're not prepared and you don't have the confidence, you've got no chance. I mean, unless someone that you know, it's a family member, a friend, referral, something like that. You walk in and you're competing with other agents as a listing agent in the listing presentation, you've got no chance. So that lack of confidence, believe it or not, is going to kind of impede us from lead gen. Because in the back of our minds, we're thinking, okay, well, I'm going to go in now, I'm going to compete with 3 other agents. I've got no shot. So everything, your whole demeanor, your mindset, your attitude, the words that you use, everything in lead gen starts to fall apart because that base, that confidence isn't there that, hey, when I do get a lead, if I do set an appointment, I'm closing this thing.
Yeah.
So I think you learn listening presentation as quickly as possible, and really just that's something that you never stop working on. I think you master
Yeah.
it.
I agree with you. I would choose listing presentation myself. And the reason why I would choose listing presentation, a lot of it has to do with confidence, which you already mentioned. But what I learned in coaching is that agents who prospect, but they don't have the confidence in the listing presentation, they have a hard time asking for appointments because subconsciously they fear if the person says yes to the appointment, they're going to have to give a presentation. And they're not confident in the presentation. So then what happens is they're hesitant on asking for the appointment. They may be talking to somebody and figure out, hey, this is really a seller lead. And instead it's saying, hey, why don't I come by tomorrow at 2, unless you think 3's better, take a look at your property and share some information that might help you make some decisions. Instead of saying that, they'll say something like this. All right, well, why don't I do a little bit of research and send you an email and I'll follow up with you and we'll talk a little bit more tomorrow. So the difference is somebody may resist setting the in-person appointment for fear of having to make a presentation. So they'll default to not asking for the in-person presentation or appointment, and they'll just stay kind of like disconnected on the phone, sending emails back and forth. And we know that the conversion is going to increase dramatically in person. We got to get face to face, belly to belly with people. And that's where the conversion is going to come from. So, I think both of us agree. I love how you were a little bit hesitant to answer, because it's not a clear, it's definitely this one, because on the other side, if we were going to argue it, I would argue that, if you have nobody to present to, then you could have the best presentation in the world. If you got nobody to present to, there's nothing there. I mean, is that what you would think also? Or what would be your argument to do the other way?
And I can argue it's a numbers game, right? I set enough appointments, no matter how bad my presentation is, I'm going to take some listings, right? But we're talking about being a listing agent, right? Being someone that's actually going to go in there and get some listings and do it consistently. We're not talking about just stumbling into one and getting lucky. So yeah, having the listing presentation that's solid is going to help you go a long way in not only getting listings, but also being able to generate with more confidence and be more productive.
Yeah. Before we end, there's a few things that I remember you had mentioned out to me. I kind of jotted them down, and you were saying, number one is you got to declare it. Like if you want to be a listing agent, then own it. Right. It's like, okay, I'm going to be a listing agent, and then start taking on the role and the characteristics and, the tactics and strategies. Of course, we talked about building prospecting as a routine. You talked about knowing the market. What do you mean knowing, like having the knowledge of the market? I know what you mean, but explain to the audience what you mean by that a good listing agent knows the market.
Yeah, you have to have a really, really good sense of what's happening in your local and national market. But I would say 90% local, 10% national. You don't have to know a lot of stats about national stuff, but you've got to know your market. Like you've got to know what the inventory is. You have to know how sales are in the market, like what's selling, what neighborhoods are hot and what's not. But you got to be able to walk into an appointment and present price. Right. That's one of the most important things to sell is like, okay, you got to be able to go in there with confidence and show them data that, hey, this is what the range would be for your home. So you can't do that without knowing the market. And if you don't have at least a good foundation of market knowledge, you get exposed real quickly in a listing presentation, real quick.
Yeah. And, I said earlier, this matches up. Now that I hear what you're saying, it matches up with the seller sell-off logic. Mm-hmm. Right. I'm saying seller sell-off logic. You're saying a listing agent better know the market, because knowing the market, understanding that data on a local level, on a national level, is you're going to be better suited to present logic to a seller. And that's what the seller wants to hear. They need to understand not just what you're saying or what you're suggesting. They need to know why you're suggesting it. And it helps to have a little bit of backup, some third-party information for most people to kind of get them to trust that you know what you're talking about. That's great. Abe and I, some of you don't know, but some of you do. Abe and I have a coaching company called Agent Success Academy. And the whole entire theme around the Success Academy is for us to help you be a listing agent. We have agents that are 1.5 years in the business that are taking 15 plus listings every single month that are in the Agent Success Academy. There's numbers of them that are taking 10 plus every single month. So if you're interested in increasing your your listing side business, you need to check out Agent Success Academy. Abe, thank you again for being here with me just about every week. If one of us are out of town, sometimes we struggle, but we pretty much do it every week. And for those of you that are, enjoying the conversation that Abe and I are bringing, please subscribe and, hit that subscribe button so you get a notification when we go live, when we post another video. And if you ever have any suggestions on topics that you would like to hear Abe and I discussing, put it in the comments. We'll check it out. And we'll put that on the list because we want to deliver the content that you want delivered. Abe, thank you so much for being here, and we'll talk to you again in a week.
Enjoyed it, Greg. Thank you all for watching.
Bye-bye.